All right, so because we went ahead and set up our SketchUp, I'm going to go ahead and close that, our SketchUp model. We're going to start working with that SketchUp model layout. Now, what we did was we set up a bunch of scenes the way we wanted them to be so that we can use them better in our when we're working on layout. So when you open it, you're going to get this. You're going to get some tips for the day, which you can look at, read. You can read all of them if you like. They will help you. And you can also uncheck that so it won't show at startup, but I would suggest leaving them there because the more you work on this, the more they're going to suddenly become useful. And I'm going to hit close for right now. And now you have a template selection. Now regular SketchUp also has this, but we really only have to select it once, the very first time that we open something. And because they're mostly style discussions, they're something we can actually change pretty easily later. Here is similar. We want to start with something, and we're going to go ahead and start with a paper default of just plain old paper, and we're going to open that up. So now I have one sheet of paper that looks like this, and I can do a lot of things on it that are going to look familiar. I can draw lines on it, just like a SketchUp model. I can make a square, just like a SketchUp model. I can make arcs in a very similar way. Now notice that did not make an arc the same way we normally make an arc in SketchUp, but you can make an arc. It's called a 2-point arc. You can make a 3-point arc, which does a similar thing. And you can make a pie slice. It just depends on what you want to make. You can make circles and polygons pretty much the same way you make them in SketchUp. You also have text tools, so you can write something. And now that writing is a movable object. When you start writing, you have choices that will come up in panels, but we'll talk about that again in a second. So you have some general things that you can do over on this side. A lot of panels. Okay, so you got a toolbar full of things. Dimensions looks familiar, an eraser, a style dropper. So what that does is kind of like in your materials panel where you say, hey, I want the color of this to be the same somewhere else. You can pull the style of something and move it on to something else. I'll show you what I mean by that in a bit. You also have this, which is called a split and join tools. And that does something that, that SketchUp used to do automatically for you. But you know how we made this with the line tool and we made this with the rectangle tool? If we were in SketchUp, these two things would just stick to each other. But in order to actually get them to stick to each other, as you can see, they're two separate objects. If we want them to actually stick to each other, we would have to perhaps cut them both and then join them both so that they would operate by the same way. So I just clicked on that square and that square to join them, and now I created relatively complex geometry that I can move around that's really one thing, right? This is a presentation mode, kind of like PowerPoint, so you can use that to present. This is hard for you to see though because I don't have my whole screen recording, but that skipped to the whole screen. You can see kind of part of the square. You can add a new page and navigate between pages that you add. So we're going to go ahead and add a new page and then navigate back to our first page. Now let's go over some of our trays over here. You've got color, shape style, pattern and fill, SketchUp model, dimension style, text style, pages, layers, scrapbook, and instructor. Your instructor is an instructor. It's got hints for you, and it's got a little bit more information about everything you click on. So if you click on the eraser, it's going to tell you a little bit about that tool. Now this is a little more than just hovering over it and having it say eraser. And as you can see, I could use the eraser just like SketchUp. But if you have any questions or you don't quite remember how to use a tool like the split or join tool, then this would be a good place to look. As you can see, the glue bottle shows you that you have to click on all the lines surrounding something, and that will make it a solid object. So if you want to collapse it or make it take up less room, you can click this little button over here, and if you want to close it, you can click that button over there. So we're going to also start, with some simpler things, and you can go through this entire panel and see what it does. But colors is relatively obvious. It allows you to pick colors on a color picker. It also allows you to save those colors from in these little spaces here, and therefore use them again later. So if I want to save that orange, I'll do that. If I want to save this blue, I'm going to click on this spot up here, drag down to here, and drop, and I've just added that there. So now I can always choose this red and this blue anytime I want. I actually don't like those colors at all. So I'm going to grab that color, and I'm going to grab, ooh, that's pretty. That color, that's better. Okay, so colors is pretty much just a color picker, and you can make swatches if you want to. Shape and style allows you to affect an object. So this object right now has a fill. That fill is white. You can see right here that that's fill, and that's a white color. If you hover over it, you can see that the pattern is not checked. If I check the pattern, you'd see it right there. But the pattern is unchecked, so it's not filled with a pattern, but it is filled with a color. So I'm going to fill it with this color instead. I'm also going to fill it with a pattern of my choosing. Now I can choose basket weave. And you see that when I clicked pattern, and this was hidden, when I clicked pattern, it popped up. It popped up like that. Oh, I'm sorry. It was when I clicked basket weave, right there. This is an in-document pattern. You can also go to all patterns, select anything you like a geometric tile, lawn, hey look, a parking lot. Let's see, all patterns, geometric shapes, translucent line work, checkerboard, rectangles. That looks fun. We're going to go with that. Now you can see with this pattern that you can also change the rotation of it. So I can make it on its side. Actually, let's first start with the scale factor. I can make it bigger. And I can type in whatever I want here. I can go 6x, and I can make that pattern nice and big. And now that it's nice and big, you can see that if I have a rotation on it, it's going to be at a really, well, not if I do round numbers, because a square is going to become a square again. But you can see that if I rotate it, I can get different angles on that. I can also rotate it any degree that I type in. I don't have to do just what this drop-down box tells me to do. So I'm going to go with a 45, so that they're diamonds instead. And you can also affect the stroke. The stroke is that line outside. This right here is how thick that stroke is. Again, you can, I'm going to zoom in. And I'm zooming in the same way I would zoom in SketchUp. I'm just rolling my wheel. You can see that right here. The points is how big or thick that line is. And again, you can type in whatever you like and it'll pop up. The stroke color is right here. So you can select that and you can change the color. So I can make it purple. I can make it a really dark purple. That looks good. I can also change the style of the stroke. I can make the corners rounded. I can make the corners cut. I have so many options, it's frankly ridiculous. When I draw a line, I can do the same type of thing to this line where I can have the ends, I'm going to make this 15 point. I can make the ends circular like that. I can make them straight like that. I can make them square like that. And you can see the difference here is that this one is straight here, this one goes beyond. I can put an arrow on it if I want to. I can put an arrow on either end, which is really weird on the short line, but you know, whatever floats your boat. So I can do that, and so there's lots of styles you can choose from in shape and pattern, and colors for anything that you draw, any shape that you draw on your page. So now you can make your page look cool, right? You can make, I should add to that text style. So when you're writing text and you're saying, Jennifer Ivy's SketchUp Extravaganza, and you're making that really nice and big, and you're changing the font, you do it just like you would in any other program. When you're manipulating the box that this is in, you can see that I've got arrows here. I've got an arrow in the corner, and I can move it in any direction, or I can hold shift, which will lock it to the proportions that I've already set. I can move the sides, the top, and also there's this little handle in the middle, and what I can do on that is I can grab it and spin it. So I don't really want to do any of those things. I just want to grab it regular style. And so I'm going to wait until this will make it bigger. I'm going to wait until my cursor looks like the move tool from SketchUp, and then I'm going to move it into place. Okay. I am going to double click on it so that I affect the text again. I'm going to put an enter right there. I'm going to put a dash right here, and I'm going to make all of it white. I make all of it white, I say. Hey now. I'm going to make the text. Oh, there it is. It's clicking on the wrong place. You can see that text and has a little color box right next to it. It means that that's how I make my text white. I'm going to move it down so that this goes all the way there. As you can see, it kind of wants to snap to a certain place. If I move it this way, it's going to move a little at a time. It's trying to snap it to a grid that we can't really see right now to make sure everything lines up and everything looks good together. I can also double click on this and select just this text and change. And change the color of just that text. Well, that's far too dark, you see. Make it a very light purple. I said, you know what, we might need to make it very good cream. There we go. So it's still readable, that is. So we can make text, and again, like our other one, we can involve layers. So if I know that I want something to be in front of something else, I can rearrange them in the layers panel. We can also control our pages from this panel, so I can see that there's nothing on my second page, but there is something on my first page, my name and my title. But what makes this, so this is a layout program. You can add presentational items to it. You can use it to show people your SketchUp files. The thing that makes this impressive and the thing that makes this cool is what I'm about to show you next. Go to File, Insert, and now go pick out your SketchUp. Now that I have that SketchUp model inserted, I go to File, Insert, and pick the SketchUp model that I want. It's going to start with the last place that I left my SketchUp model, which looked like this. Now, this is a view into my SketchUp model. I can change this window however I like in size. If I do that, as you saw, it recalculated, it refreshed what it needed to be. So if I make it wider, it'll take a wider picture from the SketchUp model. I can also double click on it, and I can navigate with the Orbit tool and the Pan tool and the Zoom tool with the wheel. These are our traditional navigational techniques that we use in SketchUp, and I can decide what I want that view to look like. Now, one of the reasons we went ahead and prepped our scenes the way we did is, as you can see over here, I can also choose the scenes that we saw and we made in our recent preparation in SketchUp. So I can decide that I want this to be, I can also do our standard views, so isometric, front, that kind of thing. And I can go with front. Let's do that. I can go front, and then I can grab it with the hand tool and move it until I see or don't see it. Now we can also do ortho, which will be locking our picture to a scale. So I'll show you that on the next page. So let's say I want this as my introductory, hey everybody, look at me page, and then I'm going to go to my next page, which is currently blank, and I'm going to go ahead and do the same, a window to the same SketchUp model. So I'm just going to go over there and hit Control-C for copy and Control-V for paste. And that's going to insert that model again. And my computer's going to think real hard about it. And now I'm going to go ahead and go to another scene. I'm going to go to the ground plan, so I can see it right from the top, and I am going to make this into a scale. I could do 1 foot equals 10 feet, or 1 inch equals 10 feet. That actually doesn't seem like a bad size. So I could do that for this, for the whole stage, to show a whole stage picture. And then copy that same window. And then I'm going to shrink it, and I'm going to show a smaller bit of that setting. I'm going to double click again so that I can get inside the image, and I'm going to zoom in on the staircase. I'm going to click out, expand, shrink. That looks good. I'm going to click on it again and zoom in so that I can undo that. Oh, I can't. So I'm going to make sure this says top, that it goes there. Double click on it. I'm going to go to scale, and I'm going to ask it to be at 20-foot scale. I want it to be smaller than that. I'm going to ask it to be at 1/8 inch scale, 1/4 inch scale, 1/4 inch scale. It won't too bad. So I'm going to ask it to be a 1/4 inch scale. So it's at standard view top, 1/4 inch scale, and our ground plan had no perspective in it. So another thing we can do is, if we have different styles in our model, or even just around, I can turn this into a different style. I can go styles, I can go to sketchy edges, and I can turn this into this style, or I can turn it into this style, or I can turn it into this style, or this style, or this style, this style. You know what, I kind of like this like real wobbly blue one. Pen and black. It's not bad. But the entire point is that I can make these look different, even though they're the same thing, even though they're basically the same view of this model. And you can do all that inside the SketchUp model page. Anytime you're looking at a viewport, which is what these little windows are called, then you can change the scenes, the standard views, the ortho, and you can change the shadows, just like we did in inside SketchUp. So in this model right here, if I decide I don't like the way that looks, I can bring this up and I can change the shadows. It takes a lot more time, so as you can see, it might be worth it to go back into my SketchUp model. Now let's say I do all this work, And what I really want to do is put another person in my model. What I can do is click on it, right click, and say open with SketchUp. And what that's going to do is bring me back in to my SketchUp model. It's going to go to my computer. It's going to find the original SketchUp model for me. And it's going to say, hey Jennifer, I found your SketchUp model. And I'm going to say, oh, thank you SketchUp for finding that SketchUp model for me. I appreciate that. And it's going to open it in SketchUp, and I can do whatever I want to it. So just like I did when this was a normal SketchUp model and when we were prepping it, I'm going to grab this person, grab my move tool, tap control, and put another guy over here. I'm going to add another view of looking up at the fireplace with this person in it. So I'm going to go window, scenes, I'm going to add a scene, and I'm going to create a new scene for scene 8 and close it, and I'm going to hit file, save, and then I'm going to go back to layout. And now sometimes the model it doesn't look at the model every single time that it considers its lifelong existence. So you have to right click on it and say update model reference. And when you do that, whatever is currently in the model will appear. So here's that guy we just moved and he is suddenly there. Now if he wasn't in this scene, if he wasn't on the model in that scene the way we've set this up, which is a modified scene 5, then he wouldn't show up. For instance, if I go back in here, whoops, undo that so he's not floating in the middle of nowhere. Go back to scenes. I'm going to go to scene 5. So let's say that in this scene, I'm going to go ahead and change something. If I change it and save it, it would change on this viewport, but not our next one, because the next one's based on a different scene. As we turn the page, you can see that there's a little person right here, that flat line, and that flat line's a person, and now there's another flat line right there with that person too. It's a little hard to see in this reference, but if I double click on it and turn it, you can see that there are definitely 3 guys there. And that's very useful. So if you start to make your presentation in the middle of a project and you're not quite done, but you know you're going to need a couple views of your model, and you put it in here and you make those views, and then you decide, hey, I really need to change something. For instance, if you want to start making this project before you're done with project 5, that's fine. Your SketchUp model will automatically update, and that's very useful. Also, if you add furniture, that is all useful. And that is the biggest part of SketchUp layout. Now, your dimension styles are a little bit better here. So if you grab the dimension tool and you go ahead, you can still snap to the corners in SketchUp, and it'll be a little bit easier in order to write. You can change it to architectural measurements instead of metric measurements. You can also choose define whether or not you want the numbers to be on the center or below. You can choose what scale this is in. You can choose your precision, 1/16 of an inch versus 1 inch. There are lots of things that you can choose in order for you to get your dimension style correct. And that includes some text options as well. And as I said before, you can choose your pages from in here, so you can navigate, but you can also do a thumbnail view so you can tell what your pages are and which one's which. You have layers just like before, so if I want to go back to I want to navigate back to my first page and decide that I want this background piece and this piece above that, I can go to Arrange, Bring to Front. I can also set them on different layers. Okay. The scrapbook is where you will find anything that you plan on using a lot. And there are some standard things already in here that could be used for architectural means, such as labels and the like, and those are very helpful. But you also have color blocks, you have cars, if you're doing street views, you have people, and you have signs. It's all very neato pictogram stuff. And you can make your own, save them in here, and use them again. For instance, if you had a logo, you could save it and use it again and again by putting it in a scrapbook. And that is a thorough introduction to all the little bits and pieces in SketchUp. The idea of SketchUp Layout. The idea of SketchUp Layout is that you can make a presentation, or you can make something that is printable, that is kind of a portfolio piece for your item. It'll help you present to other people. If you've created a small world, you can show that world to somebody else. And you can do that without having to move into an external program from SketchUp. That also means that it'll update automatically, all that kind of thing, all that kinds of things. If I come in here, move some stuff around, change the entire color of my entire set, it will automatically update on, hey, it'll automatically update on the entire set, or on the, in layout. Come on. There we go. So if I decide to change all of these colors to red, and I click Save, and then go back to Layout, I am going to right click and Update Model Reference, and it will all turn red. And that's because they're linked together. So it becomes much more efficient when you're trying, when you're trying to make changes and you're trying to make an accurate presentation. Alrighty, that's it.